This time last year, I was in Jerusalem, and that's a very strange place to celebrate the Triduum, particularly at the time that I was there, because it was Ramadan also, and it was the Passover. And so you have a collision, if you like, of the Abrahamic religions, all telling different stories. One of the things we did, and my parents came out as well, we went on a tunnel tour in the Kotel. The Kotel is what they give to the Esplanade, the heritage site, which encompasses the western wall of the temple. Temple, of course, being the house of the Lord. And it's called a tunnel tour because although you may have seen that esplanade, that overground courtyard, much of the temple is now underground, encased in 2,000 years of violence, destruction, and overbuild. And while we're tourists, we're on the tour, being shown and being pointed out the great stones of the temple and the foundation. We go through the place that Jews come to pray, come to be near to what is left of the temple. So they go into the tunnels. There's even a synagogue that's been built there to be as close as possible to the very stones of the temple and say their prayers. The former temple walls. You might think, well, why? Why do that? And that's the question that comes to us because of who we are and what we celebrate tonight. Because the temple is the place of God's presence. There's even a sense of a question mark over whether they might, if they're allowed, which they're not at the moment, to excavate, to find the Ark of the Covenant after thousands of years. This beautiful desire, then, to be near to the presence of God. It's like that's expressed in our psalm that we hear, one of the psalms we'll hear on Saturday. Like the deer that yearns for flowing water, so longs my soul for God, the living God. And yet, as we went through and we saw this devotional longing in the tunnels, near to the temple, that it came to me, perhaps crudely, we don't have to do this. Christians, I mean. And we can see this in the Old Testament, how the desire to be near God remains unfulfilled often. The presence of God is always on the horizon. Song of Songs. Upon my bed at night I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but found him not. And in a psalm we sang this morning at Tenebrae, I noticed, my eyes grow dim with waiting for my God. Dare we underestimate the gift God gives us tonight, on the night he was betrayed? Because we don't have to long for the presence of God. God's real presence is here, or importantly, it will be. That's why the tabernacle is empty. It's so we can focus, so that when we hear the words that Jesus gives us, we know here, now, is the presence. Jesus answered them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. The Jews then said, this temple has been under construction for 46 years, and will you raise it up in 3 days? But he was speaking of the temple of his body. So thanks to the Eucharist, we don't need to wonder when we will enter and see the face of God. We don't strain to look beyond the horizon. But something else came to me in the tunnel by those foundation stones of what was the temple. We might not need to search for God's presence, I thought. But there is one thing we do need. We need priests. And it's a fragile need, because just like the crumbling temple, priesthood draws upon itself suffering and struggle. But there's a final aspect of tonight's celebration, because the rubrics of Maundy Thursday say, Mass today, without the people, is forbidden. The temple of his body is for you. We also need your priesthood. And this is what the mandatum shows. If I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. In this way, the Triduum's journey is an invitation extended to every Christian. And it's every Christian's story. The sacrament of charity, the suffering and death, the empty tomb. St. Paul says, I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed in us. In us. For this is where the journey leads, over the horizon, into the house of God. Psalm 122 saw that. I rejoiced when I heard them say, let us go to the Lord's house. Our feet are standing within your gates. Enjoy your story.